Yeah. Yeah.
Kane is in the building.
Yeah. Already the show goes on all night till the morning. We dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night till the morning. We dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on.
Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying through they teeth, hope you slip up off your path. I don't switch up, I just laugh, put my kicks up on they desk, unaffected by...
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle War Room 4.0. Guys, it's time to clap it up, right? We got one more week until the NFL draft. And honestly speaking, I don't know how to feel, man, because like obviously the War Room episode is here right now, but then it goes away very, very shortly. And yeah, man, it's a little bit bittersweet, but that's all right. We still got two more of these shows to do. We got tonight and we got next week, and then we've got the NFL draft. I'm happy to report me and the boys will be live, by the way, for the NFL draft at my humble abode. And we'll be pretty much discussing the Bengals first round selection as it comes through the mic. But that being said, though, State of the Jungle War Room 4.0 is today, is live. But before we jump into the show, as we always do, make sure you guys do us a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the First Star Logistics studio. Boys, I gotta be honest with you, I'm pumped up because I loved last week's draft. It's going to be very difficult to top last week's draft. Yeah. I feel like we've sort of catered to the masses. The last few weeks, we've drafted offensive linemen or we've drafted defensive linemen. Are we going to do something different this week? Are we going to maybe draft a wide receiver to prepare for the obvious departure of T. Higgins that's going to happen after this season? I don't have the answer to that, but what I do know is that this draft is going to be interesting. So interesting that I'm actually going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I am not the general manager again today. Instead, the general manager today is going to be it's going to be Logan. We're going to have Logan act as the general manager today. We're going to have Logan act as the general manager today. And you know, me and Evan will pretty much be there, be his two scouts that'll be going bickering back and forth. Daniel is going to be the assistant general manager, and Evan, for the first time, me and you are just gonna sit back and we're gonna see what these boys come up with. We'll say what our opinions are. We'll make our takes, but for the most part, Daniel and Logan, this is you guys' show. Wow. This is you guys' show. I know what I said last week. I was going to be the GM, and then I coerced Willie Lutz into picking who I wanted to pick. I might do that again. Now, who knows? I might do that. Evan's drinking, so he might do that as well. So I don't know. But what I do know is going to be a jam-packed show because, as you know, somebody said the disc golf is already – Dad is already at your head. He says, at least it's not Evan, so we're saved from Burton. We're saved from Burton. But before we jump into the draft, right, the discourse – is started, obviously, regarding Byron Murphy. Everyone's like, Byron Murphy. I'll be happy to I just want to say this. If you guys check out the Right Way Sports Network, TWSN.net, and you guys looked at my insider column, I told you guys the Bengals were high on this defensive line class, at least the two names, the two-headed monsters at it. I wouldn't make too much about the Bengals not being at Jerzon Newton's pro day either as well. I just wouldn't make too much of that, guys. But I do know they really do like Byron Murphy, and I've been adamant, if you guys have watched the show, and I've been trying to tell you guys, Byron Murphy to the Bengals don't believe that he'll actually be there. They genuinely believe he'll be one of the first guys, or like one of the first defensive guys off the board. So if he is there, I know we're a week out from the draft, and I'm probably going to save some stuff for the Patreon, but I'll say this. I think there is a high chance right now that the Bengals might go defensive line. What are the odds at that? You're a betting guy, Daniel. Are the odds for the Bengals to draft defensive linemen like plus 400?
Yeah,
wasn't it plus 400?
Odds were not high for the Bengals. I believe it was like plus 400. I'm sure it creeped up a little bit, plus 3 something. But the favorite, hands down, is the Bengals to draft offensive line round 1.
And wouldn't it be just like the Bengals to do the exact opposite of what people are expecting? I'll tell you right now, Daniel, I think I might take that. So, and yes, they did disc golf that. They did meet with Jerzon Newton at the combine. I believe I was the one to report that. But yeah, man, this draft is going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, I'm excited to see how it all shakes out. But with that being said, I think it's time to get the show on the road. I think it's time to figure out who we're going to draft starting in round 1. We got the PFF mock draft simulator. We're going to turn it down a little bit, slow speed, going a little fast last week. But Daniel, the floor is yours, man.
All right. Good. Yeah. Well, a little updated board too. So that's exciting. Some new curveballs coming our way. Bears kicking it off here.
Caleb Williams, shocker.
Thank God they didn't mess that one.
I think that's going to stay chalk. Yeah.
Jaden Daniels too. That's becoming more and more than consistent, man. But
man, like when you look as the advanced data is coming out for him too, like the scrambling from clean pockets, the
McCarthy
not
6.
throwing on the run, the not hitting the middle of the field. I'm scared about the bust potential for Jaden Daniels, really, especially in a Cliff Kingsbury.
He's
offense.
Certainly fun, man. Don't get me wrong. But
oh yeah, no, and
wide range of outcomes.
It may be one of those cases where you're not quite the college player.
Quinyon Mitchell, Fuaga's still there.
Let's talk about this before we continue this draft, because this is something we haven't done. We've gone through our picks and we haven't talked about it. Let's talk about something real quick. There's seemed to be a discourse going on amongst Bengals fans about Brock Bowers. Let me be the bearer of bad news. The Bengals will not draft Brock Bowers. Even if he is there, they're not going to draft Brock Bowers. I know you have people screaming into a hot mic saying, Brock Bowers for the Bengals. I promise you, they're not going to draft Brock Bowers, which is why I've been trying to move the discussion so much further off of him. It's not that Brock Bowers is a bad prospect. It's not that he's not even a good prospect. But I think when you talk about the positional value and then you talk about what's on the board versus what their needs are, man, I think we got to get with reality. Number one, it seems like the Jets are enamored with Brock Bowers.
The Jets and the Colts are two teams I've heard a lot about.
Yes, the Jets, the Colts are teams that are interested in doing that. And
even the Bears now, they're talking about maybe too. It's between him and Russell Wilson. Some people are saying about that a while
exactly. Ago. Let me tell you right now. The fact of the matter is, this is the same Bengals team that let the entire draft process play out last year. Didn't even address
in a loaded class. Didn't address the tight end position.
Well, Michael Mayer was on the board for
the fact of the matter is, I'm willing to state put my flag down and say that that's not going to happen. CJD22K says, I would love to see a Malik Wright versus James Rapine first take debate on the topic of Brock Bowers. There's no debate to be had. I'm open to a debate. So Rapine, if you want to, we could debate.
I think Malik agrees with a lot of the things that James might say. It's just the value is different. Especially, I know that Jake Liska's brought this up. I know other people have brought this up too, that if you're that high end first round talent, you got to have the complete profile and the testing. While we know that looking at the tape, Brock Bowers is that athlete. It's a box teams want to check. And Michael Mayer fell out of the first round despite being a great prospect because he didn't have high-end athletic testing.
The same thing can be said really for Jerzon Newton now too. Not testing, that can kind of help the whole Byron Murphy train over him too, who tested and proved he was an elite athlete. Not that any of us thinks Newton's not, but
not an inferior prospect, but you just have another question mark. And
a lot of teams like as much info as possible. When you withhold information, people don't like it.
Yes, and I'll just say this, and I hate to keep talking about this situation. I just want Bengals fans to deal in the world of reality. Brock Bowers will not be a Bengal. I'll debate anybody, any one of your favorite social media people. I'll debate them. We can discuss it. I can promise you I'm willing to lay stake to that. That ain't happening. But more importantly, not for the reasons of him not for the reasons that he's just not a talented player, because I think he's a great player. He won't be there. There will be other guys that will be interested in him. And then when you look at the way the board is shaping up versus the guys the Bengals could truly go after, man, you can solve your offensive tackle problem of the future, or you can solve your defensive lineman issue. You've been trying to find this replacement for Geno Atkins since he left. To me, it makes the most sense. So I understand why everyone's enamored with them, but understand something. I got something to tell you guys. Mike Gesicki came to Cincinnati with the illusion, with the thought process that, hey, I'm going to be the starting tight end.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the starting tight end. And like I said, I'm willing to debate anybody, and that means anybody. I see you guys saying names in the comment section. I'm willing to debate anybody on the topic. The simple fact of the matter is, I deal in the world reality. Brock Bowers won't be there. Brock Bowers won't be a Bengal, and that's all I got to say about that. That being said, J.J. McCarthy to the Giants is something that is starting to gain more steam, right? J.J. McCarthy to the Giants is something that is starting to gain more steam, and I understand all the reasons why. I want to ask you this, right? You in particular, Evan.
Careful,
Is
he's
this a
drunk.
lateral move for them with Daniel Jones? Is it?
No, but I'm probably about as low as you can get on Daniel Jones. The one redeeming season he did have, he was basically just power run quarterback. And I hear the arguments that the supporting cast has not been great, right?
Yep.
The offensive line, the wide receivers, Sterling Shepard is when he was healthy used to be good, but like he's never stayed healthy in 4 years. So I hear that. And while I respect that, I also just never thought Daniel Jones was worth where he was taken. I was surprised to see them give him an extension when that's
Big boy
literally
extension, too.
what the franchise tag is for, is if you're somehow still didn't believe in what you saw. But again, we got to go back to if you want to compete in the playoffs, when you watch all these quarterbacks, you better have a guy who can carry your fucking team or he is going to weigh you down. And you can't look me in the eye and tell me, oh, yeah, if they just build the right team in 3 years, they might be able to compete with Daniel Jones because he can run the ball. Like, I just don't see that. So I don't see it as much of a lateral move. But at the same time, I don't think that J.J. McCarthy has as high of a ceiling as these other guys, right? I think he's the start of that tier after Drake May, the Michael Penix, the Bo Nix area where, he's probably a better prospect than those guys. He can be your high-end Jared Goff, right? Your Kirk Cousins in the wide zone scheme. He's going to be great in that.
Yeah.
But again, that's going to be a lot about fit. If you ask him to run the Joe Burrow offense, it's not going to look great. But that's where the fit comes in. And I think Kevin O'Connell coming from that system, being with the Vikings, I think that is a really good spot to be. And then there's also kind of machinations about, is Sean Payton going to do something? Because is he going to really sit on his hands for a year after he just came back? Like
after he sat on his hands for a year.
Right. Yeah. No, he tried to make it work with Russell Wilson. And I think, is he really going to go in and just have a question mark at quarterback all season with Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick, and now you have no Jerry Jeudy? Like, do you think he wants to have a rebuild year? No. So those are definitely the two teams that I think he's probably most likely going to end up on.
Absolutely. So it seems like more people are coming around to the idea of why we're so poignant on the fact that we need to draft, for a position like a defensive tackle or offensive tackle. It literally squares you away and something you don't have to think about. I think that this just makes the most sense. But the way that this draft is shaping up is a lot like how I think we need to start dealing with this draft board. I probably would say is probably one of the most accurate or more accurate ones that I've seen, because this is the reality we need to start dealing with. It was fun off-season talk to start getting people chattering and getting people talking. But we need to start dealing with reality, because I don't want hearts broken on draft night when a certain tight end gets drafted at 10 or whatever the case.
The thing is, too, if he goes, that's another offensive tackle. That's another defensive player.
As of right now, Fuaga's
still
on the board, pushing him down. So, I mean, the Jets and Fuaga have been, side by side the whole draft process.
I will say this, and I hate to breathe this point. I was on Twitter today. I mean, not Twitter today. I was on Instagram today.
I thought you were going to call it
It
X.
It hasn't been necessarily stated yet, but I went on Instagram today and I saw a certain agent following Byron Murphy.
Gonna give everybody PTSD.
He only follows people who he represents.
Yeah.
There has been no official statement made.
Right.
But everyone's favorite agent in Cincinnati, I believe, might be representing Byron Murphy. That is all I will say. I noticed that, and I said it would make sense because he is considered to be, the best. Probably one of the best defensive interior prospects in this draft class.
And don't let that scare you.
No,
either.
it shouldn't scare you, but
it's still something that's like, man, like
Back
not
of your
that.
back.
I'd prefer not, but like whatever,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
So it is what it is.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm curious to see how that's gonna shake out. But Daniel, let's resume the draft. I've kind of been paused.
And we're good.
No, we're
Breaking
good.
it down.
I think this is actually a very accurate draft. I mean, look
think
at the
so.
Titans, Joe Alt,
Vashanu goes
Broncos
off the
could go
board.
anywhere.
Fuaga.
Raiders.
Fuaga goes to the Raiders.
Latham.
Latham.
The tackles are
We love it.
flying.
I really think
Arnold.
I think the Saints are guaranteed to take an offensive lineman.
Jared
And I think that's
Verse.
going to be the
Jared
pick
Verse.
that takes Latham off the board if he doesn't
Not
go
now.
higher.
And then Troy gets drafted.
Let me say this
by
because
the
this
Jags.
is about Latham. I know some people really like him and that he's going to get there. If there are, let's say, 5 teams in the 17 picks before the Bengals that see Fatanu and Fuaga as guards, then Latham is basically the second or third tackle on their board, depending on what they're looking for. So there's talk that the Chargers might take him as early as in the top 10. And there's other teams there that might take him too. So I think that's something important to consider too, if other teams consider those guys
on
guards.
Fat Now, just specifically here, a little tidbit. I mean, it's not some big, well-kept secret or anything, but Seattle hired like all of Washington's offensive staff, including the offensive line coach. So if you're really looking for, again, we're talking about draft odds, betting, there's a good chance he ends up there in Seattle too. So, but anyways, here we are. 18, the same old guys for the most part. Murphy, Newton, Mims. That's the vibe. I mean, there's probably a couple other guys you can randomly throw in.
I mean,
but
I think the way we got to look at it, right? Like if we're looking at for the Bengals immediately, I mean, you got to think about wide receiver. I don't think AD Mitchell, like, he's flashy, but I'm not in the business of
some interesting things coming out about him last couple of days.
So wide receiver,
Really? What?
Just about his not keeping up with himself very well as much as people would like, but
Who, AD Mitchell?
yeah.
But
I think a lot, bro. The dude had a kid too.
The thing
let's
is,
not forget
so
that
you had that
either.
going on, and he's young. These guys are kids. First of all, like we were not like adults until like 25. Daniel's still working his way up
Me
there.
too,
That's all
man.
right, but no, they're talking about how he is struggling to manage, like you said, football, family, and the diabetes thing, which is probably a reason for we saw some of the behavior stuff, because that does affect your mood and everything else. And so I think teams have resources to dedicate this stuff, right? So I don't think you should be like dropping him around or 15, 20 picks because he has diabetes. Like, educate him, right? Give someone the responsibility of helping him learn. That's part of developing a prospect.
I agree.
Obviously, Cooper DeJean is just kind of a guy that a lot of guys like, and that we haven't necessarily seen come down here quite often. Definitely kind of that zone warrior, has good just straight line speed. Didn't do the lateral agility testing, which maybe indicates that he's not quite the superior athlete there, but everybody likes to share his basketball highlights and show that he can move laterally just fine.
White guys can hoop too.
So of course,
I said white guys can hoop too.
They can. Passer rating when targeted out of 153 corners, he was 4th in the in college football last year among draft eligible players. So the ball production not there as much, but he is a very good athlete. When zone turns into man, he can close on guys and stick with them really close. I do like the prospect, but I don't want to say that we should like rule corner out or anything that's not going to play, right? Because some people are like, hey, if the first round pick isn't playing 600 plus snaps, it's a bust. It's a failure. We need it, right? That's the wrong way to think. I know Miles Murphy. I know Dax Hill has traumatized everybody, but you can still take good players and say, hey, they're going to contribute 300-400 snaps year one. I do think the value here with Jerzon Newton, with Byron Murphy, whichever way you want to go, is just it's too good for value of the player and value of the need.
I was just saying the only other name that I want to throw in that we haven't really ever truly talked about here at 18. We've talked about Newton, obviously a lot, Murphy a lot, Mims a lot. I want to talk a little bit about Liatu Latu. I mean, the Bengals were at his pro day at UCLA.
Defensive staff was at the pro day too,
which is a heavy thing, by the way. And don't get me wrong, there's some other solid UCLA prospects, but Latu is unbelievable. I mean, dude, you can even click on this thing as PFF.
Would he be your
grades
edge one if he didn't have the neck issue?
Absolutely. I mean, he still is. He still is my edge one personally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, look at it. I mean, the pass rush grade is everything about him is unbelievable. His win rate, unbelievable. The film, unbelievable. 15 sacks, 27 sacks in the last 2 years. Unbelievable. There's so many things to like about him. Literally, the only sort of red flag is his injury history. But again, he obviously got cleared and he came back, and you know what he do? He dominated. Everything about him is just has the production of a top 5 pick. Like if this was a healthy player, he's top 5 in this draft class year in and year out. He just is.
No, that's a good point.
He just is.
100%.
Listen, I'll say this. I know I don't really have any autonomy here. I can just say
I have no influence.
I have
I'm just
no
a guy.
influence at all. I'm just the guy with a hot mic. I think that Byron Murphy is the defensive tackle with the highest upside in this class. I think that you love what you saw on tape with Jerzon Newton.
Yep.
Does the foot injury scare you? I have no idea. But I just know that he tested like a freak. And I love the tweet you put out the other day, right? We're going to do this thing. We're going to do this. No,
we're doing the Elijah
Cancer. Here we go.
Literally the pre-draft or the pre-combine conversation. Yeah. Oh, is this guy borderline top 10 pick? Then the combine happens. They don't test, or they come in, they measure him with shorter arms than you might expect. And it's like, oh, well, now he probably goes 18, 20. And then suddenly like a week or two before the draft, it's like, oh, maybe he falls into the second round. And then he goes 19 and everyone's looking at the playoffs going, man, Elijah Cansey's good. He's out there making plays. I wonder how he fell to where he was. Like maybe that was a mistake. And here we are with Jerson Newton, who people say have shorter arms, but he has like I think like 2-inch longer arms than Elijah Cansey did, or 1.5 inches. So like, what are we doing here? It's the exact same thing. The guy looks great on tape. I know you don't have the testing, but I don't have athleticism concerns on tape. The guy was monstrably productive, was still great in the run game. I know Byron Murphy, like you said, versatility all over the line, great production at nose, great production at 3-tech. He's definitely got the more complete profile, but that's not to say that Jerson Newton is any less of a prospect. Right. He just has one less box ticked, and sometimes that's the tiebreaker.
And I got to ask you, and with that thought process, obviously these two are making the call, but who would you prefer out of those two? Would you prefer Byron Murphy? Would you prefer Jerson Newton? Because I can tell you right now, listen to me, when I turn on the tape and you watch a guy like Byron Murphy, you just see him show up every week.
The strength is crazy, man.
It's insane, man. And the way that he's able to just hold his point of attack is something really, really special. And I think, can he be, and this is the question you have to ask yourself, especially because you're spending a premium pick in 18th overall on him, potentially. Can he be one of the best defensive tackles in football? And I think the answer is yes. To me,
out of 128 defensive tackles in college last year, 19.6% pass rush win rate first. Pass rush productivity, which weights the sacks to account for their value over pressures, still first, 9.6. Like that is the best. That is dominant. Like I know the Big 12 is not necessarily the greatest competition as things kind of fizzle out over there, but at the same time, like all you can do is dominate the man in front of you, and he absolutely did.
Right. And I know there are a lot of people, obviously, that are clamoring, saying, "Well, you got Sheldon Rankins, you got BJ Hill." This solves.
He played nose tackle more than Devondre Sweat did.
And
he
BJ
almost
Hill's
300
a free
snaps
agent this
there.
time next year.
And he had like an 85 grade at the nose tackle spot. I know he's 297. Dude is strong as a fucking ox. He might as well be 330.
And it solves the issue for the long haul.
He doesn't move on double
5
teams.
years.
He holds his ground. His anchor is great. Like, and that's what you're asking for, man. And if you're asking for a guy that you can take at nose tackle right now, get him on the field, play 500, 600, 700 snaps like everybody's clamoring for. And then when Sheldon Rankin's contract is over, slide him inside to the 3-tech instead. Absolutely. He has the versatility to do that.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Daniel?
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I think, I mean, I'm pretty much, we can have the discussion about Marius Mims, but at the end of the day, if we're talking about it, the dude started, obviously, he only started 8 games, right? So for now, what we're looking at is what type of player do we want to bring into our team right now? I like Byron Murphy or Jerson Newton. Jerson Newton to me, and I really have no problem with either or. Jerson Newton to me, my selling point for him is truly when I watch a film and you go look at opposing offensive coordinators and opposing offensive teams, so many times, not to say that they didn't do this for Byron Murphy, so many times it's, hey, double team that guy.
Their whole game plan.
That guy is wrecking our game. And what I saw, how productive he was, what he did offensive lineman, and just the moves that he had in his bag, for me, Jerson Newton may not have the potential of a Byron Murphy, sure, but I see a floor to where you can insert him right away, and I know he is going to be extremely productive. So I think that's the conversation. The difference is Byron Murphy, yes, he's going to give you you can put him in as a nose tackle right away. Jerson Newton, to me, is more the safe pick to say the dude was extremely productive in college, and I know that, hey, maybe the injury sure is an issue, but Jerson Newton, damn productive. I love Jerson Newton. But right now, I think it's either between Jerson Newton and Byron Murphy. Obviously, we talked about Law too, but I think those two are the real conversation we're having.
I like Murphy. I do just want to point out, though, this is not to besmirch Murphy. It's just interesting how the narratives go, right? Sometimes the narratives get applied to some guys, but not to others. There's the talk of, Jerson Newton. Well, the reason he's sliding is because he's a little undersized for a D tackle. Well, Byron Murphy is shorter, weighs less, has the exact same arm measurements. So why is Byron Murphy not sliding because of his undersized nature, right? Like that's
I don't usually address scouts, and that's what we refer to people that are in the comment section, obviously, because we really do appreciate the input you guys put. But I don't really address it, but I'm going to address it right here. He says people acting like Bengal Oracle says people acting like we didn't sign Rankins. Can I cook for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay.
The 2-year contract.
Let me cook for a second.
Do it.
You're relying on a guy, right? And Sheldon Rankins, albeit while he's been productive in his career, has never been able to break through into the upper echelon. He's a guy that you have under contract, for 2 years, right? And then what? What is the long-term answer at that position? Right now, it looks good, right? Well, we got those guys under contract for right now. Well, BJ Hill's a free agent after next year. Sheldon Rankins is a free agent after 2 years. What is the long-term answer there? Everybody in the NFL is clamoring for that star interior defensive lineman. It's the reason why guys like my man from the Dolphins, what's the
Christian Wilkins.
Christian Wilkins just got paid $100 million. It's the reason why Aaron Donald just got paid why he got paid.
That, and also he can play fucking nose tackle.
Exactly.
He can play next to
both.
Rankins.
It literally shores you up at the position for the longest haul. Don't tell me that Sheldon Rankins stops you from drafting a Byron Murphy. Come on now.
The backup D tackles had like 800 snaps last year. What do we want to?
You said Sheldon Rankins starts. Period. How can you say that? How can you say that?
Well,
Because what I think is,
Well,
I
then
think
Byron
Sheldon,
Murphy
I
starts
think,
next to
I
him.
think Byron Murphy starts next to him. I think Sheldon Rankins, if he's replacing anybody, he's replacing BJ on the starting defensive line.
the other thing too is like, yeah, I can sort of cut you some slack for that argument, but then what do you want to draft? Because you can't argue you want an offensive lineman. Then we signed Trent Brown.
Yeah.
So now what do you want? You can't argue a corner because we have starting corners. We just signed Mike Gesicki, so we don't want a tight end. So what exactly would you want to draft then with this whole philosophy that we're arguing here? It's not you don't just draft for right now. This is a player you can have control over for 5 years.
2 years ain't a long time. Let's just say that it ain't a long time,
especially for a 30-year-old.
right?
That's again. Look at the guaranteed money. That's saying he might not even see the next 2 years.
Listen,
If they say, hey, we take Dwayne Carter and we take Jerzon Newton or Byron Murphy, and then next year they go, man, do we really need that? Or BJ Hill's coming off the books. Like, guys, I don't think you realize how much the backup defensive ends and defensive tackles play. Like, it's not like offensive line or wide receivers or corners where you go out there and you play the whole damn game. Like, you rotate. Like, you get 500, 800 snaps from your backups. Like, there is room for him to have an impact, especially on passing downs.
You want to hear the most beautiful thing about this? When you have a star-studded guy in the interior of your defensive line, for years we weren't saying, "Oh man, we need to replace Atkins or we need to grab another guy." We were saying maybe we need to get a true nose tackle next to him, somebody to help alleviate that. But you grab all these guys that are, I specialize as a nose tackle. No, I specialize as a 3-tech. No, I specialize. You grab those guys in hopes that they can sort of replicate that and offset that. But when you have a true game changer in the middle of your defensive line, come on, man. Don't tell me Sheldon Rankins stops you from drafting a Byron Murphy or Jerzon Newton. Let's get real. But you guys are the GMs. Let's make the trade.
Yeah, one last thing I want to say is, like, when you look at the defensive tackles, guys, it's okay. Let's say if Byron Murphy isn't the best defensive tackle on the Bengals this year. The dude is 22 years old. So for me, I'm comfortable with taking one of these guys and saying, hey, it's okay if they're not my best defensive tackle. They're 22 years old. And you look at defensive tackles across the league. Who's one that's really stepping in year one and being the best? Kalijah Kancey was very good. But
he's so small. Though,
and next year, who are your defensive tackles?
Yes.
Because BJ Hill comes off the books.
Yes.
You don't have any defensive tackle depth. Who are you? That's, again, there's 1,200 plus snaps available. These guys can take that piece of the pie. So I think it's just silly.
And final thing I'll say is, we looked at, some of the offensive tackle depth. I like it in round 2. Like, it's not the greatest, but I like maybe, Blake Fisher we talked about. There's Kieran. There's, a couple other guys. Kingsley could potentially fall. So I look at it like that. And also I look at the defensive tackle depth also. We're going to have a chance to go after another defense tackle. We're going to have a chance to go after a cornerback. So the way I look at it, I think you take one of the DTs and you don't look back.
I'm with you.
GM.
I'm with you. We ready to lock it in?
Yeah.
All right. We've done it before, but I'm going to lock in Byron Murphy here again.
Byron Murphy. Clap it up, folks.
The thing with Murphy, man, like we kind of talked about it a little bit before the show, just like the film is there, just like it is with Newton, but the testing is there. And then not only is the testing there, but the testing is unbelievable.
Yep.
He's one of the better defensive tackle athletes we've seen. There's so many things to like about him. And just, maybe if Newton tests, maybe we lean Newton. But the fact that Bo Nix, But the fact is, we know what Murphy is. We know the athlete he is. When the two prospects are truly that close, the more information you have on one of them, the better.
Right.
Josh Robinson, man.
That's a Cardinals pick.
With your guys, he's kind of falling off. We haven't heard much about him.
I think a lot of it is he got the hype because
Xavier Worthy to the
no backfield production either. No tackles for loss. Like he's got a couple of the sacks.
Jerzon Newton lands with the Chiefs. This is like the third time that we've done a draft and he's landed with the Chiefs.
That's all Daniel's fault. Sorry.
Yep. There we go. Dax Power Johnson.
JPJ, Lad McConkey to the Cardinals. Kingsley.
Somebody say, watch the Bengals draft the kid out of UC Briggs. I'm gonna tell you right now,
like 6th round, maybe 6th
round, and that's fun. That's fun.
I'm not saying I don't like him. I just like him better later.
Rosentargen 40.
All right, we get more realistic.
Patrick
We're getting
Paul.
more realistic.
Dang, that was what I was kind of hoping would slower a little bit.
And this is the updated board, so this is taking into account like all the stuff that came out from Dane Brugler and the Beast, and that's the tough part, right? Because when you're doing these drafts, all we can do is grade off the film, right? We don't know about the off-field stuff. We don't know about the medical field stuff, or the medical stuff. So until Dane comes out and says it, we don't know about it.
The only thing we know is in team's interest, really. That's right.
We can look at the film. We can grade these guys like Devondre Sweat. But now that we know all the context, now he drops to round 4.
You know what I want to hear from right now? I want to hear Daniel stand on the table for your guy.
Who's my guy?
You didn't do it last time.
That's the question.
Bring it, Daniel. Bring it. Bring it.
Let's scroll down.
Keon Coleman. Oh,
I want to hear
man.
let's do it.
We can have that conversation.
Let's have that conversation. Let's do it.
So
Let's
Keon
talk,
Coleman.
Let's talk about the biggest bust potential wide receiver in the
I
draft.
disagree, man. Listen.
Go ahead.
Keon Coleman, the thing with him is you are betting on him to be your new number 1 wide
Bet
receiver.
in the house.
Not necessarily the house, I would say. I mean, it is a second round pick. It is a high pick, but at the end of the day, when you look at Keon Coleman, what can he potentially become? I think the dude can be a number 1 wide receiver on a starting team. I think he can be that big body guy. You look at a guy like T. Higgins. You look at these other big body wide receivers.
It might be the 5% outcome, though.
But listen, when you turn on the film and when you actually watch Keon Coleman, I see a dude who can high point the ball. I see a dude who has athletic ability, and people can look at, the 40-yard dash time and say he sucked. Well, what did he do right after that? The wide receiver drill. He was one of the fastest wide receivers.
That's the tough part, man.
An actual, a real
football setting.
So when I look at a guy like Keon Coleman, he wasn't the most productive of the wide receivers in the class. I'm betting on potential. I'm betting on his size. I'm betting on his ability to high point the ball. I'm betting on his ability. I saw agility. I saw him be able to break tackles. I saw him be able to run different routes. So maybe
you saw him run different routes.
I saw his ability. He did not run different routes, but I also look at,
there we go.
I
That's
also
what I'm
look
gonna
at,
say.
I also look at Florida
that.
State. Florida State had Johnny Wilson. Florida State had Jaheim Bell. Florida State had Trey Benson. Florida State
This is not a good case. If you're telling me he's so good, but he just couldn't take targets away from Johnny Wilson, that's not a guy I'm picking in the second round, right? I'm taking a guy who just doesn't have the elite first round traits, right? A guy who has a complete profile, but maybe just one question mark, like a Lad McConkey, right? So here's my problem with Keon Coleman. Obviously, like you said, he's big. He's a jump ball merchant. The 40 time, don't have a problem with, right? Because when you adjust for his height, his weight, that's fine. When you're talking about like yards after the catch, right? He was like 60th percentile. You say yes, I agree. After the catch, he is a better athlete than you would expect for a guy his size. I don't know if he's necessarily a great one after the catch. I think he was the best player Florida State had to throw 30 fucking screens to. Okay, so here's the other problems, right? Yards per target. He ranked 37th out of 39 of the draft eligible wide receivers. Yards per route run, 75th out of 109 receivers. Like you said, not productive. These are all red flags that don't scream second round prospect. And I'm not even done yet. 47th in percentile separation versus single coverage. So you're telling me all I can do is curls and back shoulders with this guy?
I don't think so. And
okay,
that's where,
and screens. But are you taking the guy that you can do back shoulders and screens and curls with in the second round?
I will say
listen, real quick. The thing when I look at it is like, I look at a guy like T. Higgins. And I truly don't think – I think Keon Coleman could replace the
You and I
Higgins.
see him the same, but you are doing a large degree of projection that you feel comfortable with that I do not, because I am a fifth of the way through my list here. Out of 34 qualifying receivers for the draft, second worst success rate per target and third worst in EPA per route. 55th percentile when you adjust for his age. When you say, hey, you're young, let's go ahead and just account for that. 55th percentile, second worst yards per route out of 26 qualifying receivers, 19th percentile success versus press. You're 6'3". Why are you only getting off press 1 in every 5 times? Nearly 70% of his targets came on screens, goes, and hitches.
But that's for me when I look at a lot of that as the result of the Florida State offense. Respectfully, like Jordan Travis was fine.
And he got hurt.
I just look at when I look at the receivers.
I'm not saying Jordan Travis is good. I'm just saying you got to show me more if you want me to take you in the second round. In the third round, I'll take that dice.
And that's a completely different conversation. The way I look at this, honestly, if we're looking at the Bengals, who would they draft in this spot? We haven't even gotten to the other prospects, guys. I'm just letting you guys know there are very good prospects still on the board. But when I look at these receivers,
Malik's just trying to start shit.
Who's a guy that I would take? I think I love Roman Wilson. He would be more of your slot guy. I love him, as an Amon-Ra St. Brown guy. I like Ricky Pearsall, but if it was me and I was drafting somebody, I'm looking at Roman Wilson. I like Jermaine Burton as a very productive wide receiver. He's a guy that gives me the most upside, in my opinion.
I think he has the most upside, but I think he has the most bust potential out of the next 10 receivers.
And that's completely fine. But for me, I look at an offense like the Bengals with Joe Burrow. You got Jamar Chase. I really don't see a whole lot of downside on the Bengals offense.
I see the downside as being, okay, well, if I can't throw him back shoulders or go routes, what's he going to do?
But what do the Bengals need out of an outside receiver?
We could use a lot of guys who here have Ricky Pearsall has inside out versatility. If T. Higgins goes, great. He can play outside. If you want him to play in the receiver or in the slot, great. He can do that. He also has the production and the proven. You tell me Florida's quarterback was so much better than Florida State's? No, but he still found ways to produce, right?
Yes.
In multiple
Let me just
years.
say this. I just want to be clear. Bengals Oracle. I ain't looking at Keon Coleman. I don't know where you got that from.
I am so
I'm just here.
And he is the only wide receiver out of this group that I say, no, thank you.
Also,
Third round, maybe.
And let me just say this. The final thing is
That's
we do have to discuss with Keon Coleman. I don't necessarily know how I would feel about having T. Higgins on the roster right now, because that's what I would be looking to replace.
That is his role. He can't, maybe he can be the big slot, but you're projecting a lot there. And I see Logan's face because, again, 70% of his routes were all vertical or screens. And it's like you're doing an even bigger projection at that point. And that's not what I'm taking in the second round when you can get a really good player that can help you right now. That you're not saying, well, if T leaves, then maybe in a year he can maybe be good.
None of us are in agreement, obviously, on Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear what Daniel's argument was.
I think I'm with you on Keon Coleman. I'm not touching that, man. I'll let somebody else take the second round dice roll.
But let's look at some of the guys. Guys, let's just play a game for a second.
Okay.
I like games.
I think the goal is to do things outside the box. I do think that we really need. First of all, let me just say this: I'm not the general manager. You are. You're the assistant general manager. But seeing the run on offensive lineman was very alarming to me. Very alarming to me, and I am almost willing to guarantee we won't get another shot at Blake Fisher, and we won't get a shot at Cooper Beebe probably at this point. Seeing the way offensive linemen fall on the board. That all being said, can we explore the potential? I'm doing this strictly for the scout's sake. Can we explore the potential of Jatavian Sanders here?
We can explore it for sure.
Let's just talk about it.
I think he's. I like Sanders. I do. I don't know if he's really even the best tight end left available either with sign on as well. I mean, Sanders is fine. 49 just feels a little rich for him.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like I think he can certainly be, throw his name in the hat a little bit, but it just feels a little much. He's really solid at a bunch of things, but he's not really great at anything. Right. He's not a great athlete.
New to the position.
Yeah, he's solid. He's a solid pick. It's just a little bit early for me. What do you guys think?
If I'm looking at Jatavian Sanders, to be honest, I'm looking at the wide receivers instead. I think these wide receivers, I look at a Roman Wilson. Number one, how are they going to fit into the Bengals offense? Jatavian Sanders, where does he fit this year? I think Mike Gesicki year one is going to be more productive than him. Is he going to be the blocking tight end? No. Drew Sample's the blocking tight end. Versus if we take a wide receiver here, Roman Wilson, I can see slotting in already as a starting slot wide receiver. Right. Keon Coleman, you can, once again, if T. Higgins is on the roster, you can have a different conversation. But as the roster is currently stated right now, I'm way more confident in taking a wide receiver like a Roman Wilson, like Keon Coleman, because I see the way bigger upside in those guys into what they can potentially become.
Right, so we're all in agreement, obviously, on like Jatavian Sanders too rich. Yes, I just saw someone mention it, so I just wanted to discuss it for a second. Let's keep going through some of these positions.
I'll throw.
I definitely want to take a look at the offensive line here. And again, this is the problem that you run into if you take defensive tackle, right? Is it feels a little bit early for Kieran. Maybe you got to reach on Blake Fisher, and I like Blake Fisher. I don't know if I like Blake Fisher at pick 49. I don't know if I do either. And that's the thing is the numbers aren't great, but you see the numbers are solid. The numbers are solid.
Do we love the player is the question, right?
I love the player, but again, loving the player. So that's the problem, right? Is the age-old question with drafts is, do you just ignore everybody else and what the board is, or do you just go in there and put the house down? When you walk into the auction, do you wait and see, can I get this for $10,000? Do you just say, I really like that piece, I'm going to put $1 million on the table? That's a bad investment, right? You've got a lot of surplus value you lost there. So there is kind of a needle to thread there of, we like this player, and this is also the appropriate time to draft him. Otherwise, you wind up with Billy Price. You wind up with Drew Sample.
Yeah.
Somebody suggested, do you trade back in the spot?
I don't think trading back is a bad spot here because I think you pick up extra picks. You've got a lot of solid players here, but the value doesn't fit as well as you'd like. And there's a handful of receivers, corners, everybody else that we feel we can get like 20, 30 picks later that you feel good about.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're late in the draft. There's going to be a lot of people that are solid and worth picking here. I mean, the two guys that I really wanted to throw in right here, Kieran Amedeji from Yale, the offensive tackle. The thing we're talking about with him is just that upside. Yeah, we know Blake Fisher is kind of that that high floor guy. He's going to come and he's going to be an average pro regardless. Like he may not have that all pro potential, but I mean, Ahmed here, his upside is really, really, really high. Obviously, that comes with a higher bust rate as well. Obviously, how many NFL players have came from Yale, respectively? You know what I mean? Like, off the top of my head, I can't really think.
You've got to dominate at a smaller school, and he was good, but he did not dominate in a fashion that you would be like, oh, okay, I feel great about taking him at 49.
And I think I could, you could argue at 49 because he doesn't really have to come in and start, but he can still has that super high upside that you're kind of looking at. Like with a guy like Amarius Mims, he's very similar. Just
he's
for
a good pass protector. The run blocking leaves lots to be desired.
Just for some other reasons, like he's he obviously has more games than Mims, but he also played at Yale. So do you value 30 games at Yale or 8 games in a SEC powerhouse? That's the thing.
I do like. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You could go.
I was going to say,
I'll throw another name out
the
after
only
you.
people that I think I would really feel comfortable taking here is one of the higher end wide receivers in terms of Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall. These are guys both that I love. Roman Wilson was 13th in yards per route run out of 109 receivers. He was 10th in yards per target out of the 39 qualifying drafted guys. So between those, I really like him and what he can offer. Was a good athlete too. A little bit undersized, going to be your slot guy, but if you want more of that inside out versatility, I like Ricky Pearsall too with 10.
I was looking at Pearsall a lot. He's always going to be 24 as a rookie, bro.
So I think the conversation, I'm with you. I love Roman Wilson. So we'll talk about Roman Wilson, but in the meantime, what is our plan for offensive tackle?
I hope Blake Fisher's there in round 3.
Here's my thing though. Obviously, we can consider an offensive tackle here. But another name I wanted to throw out just right now is Dominic Pooney here as well. It looks like he's 104. I have him ranked so much higher. He'd be my highest really ranked offensive lineman regardless, period. You look at him. Obviously he's listed here as a tackle. He's
a guard. That's my
100% going to be a guard.
Yeah.
But we could use a guard. And another thing too, if you look at the Senior Bowl, everybody loves talking about the Senior Bowl. We always talk about the Senior Bowl. He repped all 5 positions on the offensive line at the Senior Bowl. Yep. And the point of right now, maybe we don't get a surefire tackle, but we can go get a surefire left guard. I mean, he can maybe be our tackle in a pinch. He can maybe be our center in a pinch. He can maybe be our right guard in a pinch, or right tackle in a pinch. And he raises the floor of your team right now. He can come in and start right away at left guard and kind of give you that flexibility to where it's like,
To add to your point on that, he was second in PFF true pass on true pass sets and pass blocking grade.
And that's
second
as a tackle.
Out of 142 players at tackle. So there is that. Now, of course, college game and NFL game are not the same, but still, it is worth noting that he was productive in college, coming from a smaller school, undersized, which is why he might fall to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. It maybe a little rich. I mean, it's 49. He's the 104th ranked player. It's just.
Do we have any offers to trade back that we like? Because this is a scenario where I see a lot of players I like. I don't necessarily see a player I'm in love with that I'm like, we have to get him now, or we're not going to get a comparable prospect in 10, 15, 20
I also even
picks.
like Christian Haynes here a little bit too as well. Just another guard. I can come in and start right away and improve the line, but does it even give us trade offers?
I feel like the interior class
is
so we have to make the trade.
Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to trading back, but then again, we already have 10 picks.
Yep.
Right.
You know what I mean? So do we really need to maybe we can sandwich, we can take a second.
That also gives you more ammo to jump up if you're in the back end of the third round, though, and you see a run on tackles and you go, man, I want to make sure we get Blake Fisher. Let's throw one of our extra picks in there.
The way I would go about it, this is me. I love Roman Wilson. I like Pooney and I like Fisher. So those are the 3 guys I'm looking at. Yes, I like some of the defensive tackle prospects, but I think we can wait. I think Sweat will be there in the third.
Yeah,
I think Hall will be there. Carter will be there.
Just to be clear, outside receiver will be an immediate need next year after T leaves, though, because Roman Wilson will just not.
Rookie receivers do produce well if we have to wait till next year. So
And
that's
but that's the conversation. So if it's like, if we're looking at the outside receiver, I think Keon Coleman, but Roman Wilson, let me just say, I really do think, and it sounds like a lazy comp, I really do think Amon-Ra St. Brown, when you watch this film, hands, he may not be the largest, but his hands are
He's good
elite.
at contested catches despite being smaller.
And a lot of people look at his production, they just didn't throw the ball. So for me, I think it's Roman Wilson, and I would be looking to trade up for a Fisher or Pooney, because I'm confident those 2 guys, those 2 tackles, Pooney or Fisher. If I see one of them go off the board, I would trade up for the other one. That's how I look.
What do you think, Malik? You've been a little quiet this pick.
I'm not the general manager. I'm just.
I'm asking for your opinion as the general manager.
I appreciate
what are you thinking here a little
Me
bit?
personally, I would entertain a trade back scenario, but I think in this scenario, like I think you got to be smart about it, because the run on the offensive line did scare me, to be honest with you, man.
Are you going to reach? That's the problem, though.
Who
Are
we
you
trading
gonna,
back with, though? That's the thing, too. Who's moving up? Obviously, we don't know who the random team will draft.
I honestly, I know we're not like obviously Blake Fisher. We're looking at him and you're like, oh, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I mean.
I do, but at the same time, are we sitting here doing the Pilly Price thing where we panic and take a guy 20 picks earlier? Right. And I know it feels like we're splitting hairs, but again, do you go to the auction and fight?
I'd be cool with the trade back if we did something like, like a second and our like fifth for somebody's late second and a fourth or something like that, to where we're not necessarily accumulating more picks, but we're just
more quality improving,
like moving up on the back end.
I know we might have 3 picks in rounds 5 to 7, but I don't really care about those picks as much if we can get a guy in round 4.
So
guys, here and that's the question: are we sacrificing? Keep going. Are we sacrificing a guy that potentially help us right now to trade back? And I think that's the conversation we need to have. Is there going to be a guy that we're going to look back and we're going to say, "Damn, like we like him, but we."
I think if you're especially looking at this as the right now draft, you got to look at Roman Wilson or Ricky Pearsall. I think they slot in right now and immediately control.
I agree. I'm being sold on this whole Roman Wilson idea a little bit, but I want to throw this just idea philosophy out for this draft that I don't think we've ever really considered. What if we just didn't spend a premium pick on an offensive tackle? If you look at it, after this pick here, the hit rate historically on offensive linemen is borderline terrible.
Yeah, no,
it's borderline terrible. We can still upgrade the offensive line with an interior player that can maybe start at left guard here in the next round or at 70. You can still maybe get a swing guy that plays multiple positions, and then we'd obviously have to hit free agency and go sign a guy like Cam Fleming to kind of be our swing tackle for the year. Yeah. It's just the hit rate on offensive linemen after the first couple rounds is very low. That doesn't mean we won't take a swing on a depth guy, maybe round 5. But I mean, at this point, I think that's something I'm almost okay with. And that's just an avenue that hasn't really been explored. So we can continue to bolster the skill positions on offense and just the defense in general. I think how do you guys feel about that thought process as a whole?
I hear you. And this is part of the argument of why taking defensive tackle leaves you in a weird spot, right? Because Braden Fisk is right here. There's a handful of other defensive tackles that I know we and probably other people would feel comfortable with taking in the 2nd or the 3rd round, or a Michael Hall type guy, or Brandon Dorlus. Again, you've got Cam Sample and Joseph Osai are both going to be free agents next year. And the year after that, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson. So you're about to lose 4 edges in 2 years. Yep. Brandon Dorlus is a guy who can play 3-tech, can kick inside on pass rush downs, play the edge as well. That's a guy who has that versatility. But again, we took defensive tackle early. So now you feel the pressure to go offensive line. So this is just a reason why I know the Amarius Mims prospect can be a little scary, right? It's not like he was injured for 3 years and then couldn't play the whole time. He was injured once with one major injury and had other stuff stemming from that. So I know it's not comfortable, but you feel a lot better with the other options here later than you do with tackle.
Yeah. No, I mean, we think, are we ready? Or are you guys ready to
You can go ahead and send the pick in, brother, if you want to.
I've been a little convinced by my assistant GM over there. We're going to go ahead and lock in Roman Wilson here at pick 49. Just, another guy that.
Are we thinking of a trade up?
I'm not a massive trade up guy in general. I'm not opposed to it by any means.
Coleman.
But to be honest, I really like the idea of just not necessarily drafting a tackle, beefing up the interior alignment, some swing depth, nothing crazy, and then you can still.
I mean, if I can only suggest that, I would consider trading up
for Blake Fisher.
For Blake Fisher.
And this is the problem where you start to feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Well, there's still Amendeji's still there, right? I don't think he went. No. Blake Fisher's still there.
Is Pooney? Would you consider him a tackle?
Guard.
He would start day 1 for me at guard, but if mid-game Trent Brown needs a cramp, I'm more than comfortable sliding him to tackle. Trent Brown or Orlando Brown in that situation.
He can survive.
Yeah, he can. He's.
I don't think anybody's regretting Byron Murphy's pick. I don't.
Not even a little bit.
And I think the Roman Wilson pick is good. Sure, he's undersized. That's why he's in the slot. But the 10-yard and the 40, 4.39 40. How many times did the slot fade kill the Bengals?
There's going to be a time where we have to start reinvesting talent into the skill positions on offense. We can't just keep pushing it off. We've drafted a receiver well historically. We're going to continue.
And I love Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is not the level of athlete that Roman Wilson is. While Roman Wilson probably won't be as great necessarily over the middle all the time in contested situations as Tyler Boyd was. There's different drawbacks, but yards per target, he was 10th out of 39 receivers, 13th out of 109 in yards per route run. And he still had a downfield ADOT of 13.9. So, he was a downfield vertical slot.
I was just say there's still a couple left. Like I'm saying, right when one goes, then we can kind of be like, okay, now let's consider it even heavier. Let's pause it. And then once one of them goes, we'll kind of pause it and then be like, okay.
And this is the
What-
advantage of the picks
Yes.
taking 10 minutes apiece
Yes.
when we're at this point, right?
Yes.
Is now teams can call, hey, there goes a tackle. Let's call the next 3 teams up and see
right
what's
now,
going
Waiting
on.
has saved us a lot. As of right now, we barely have to move. So
there's
one's gone.
one.
So there's the 49ers and the Chiefs. Are any of those teams really going to trade with us?
Niners potentially could take trade with the Bengals.
That's what I'm saying. If we want to trade up right now for Blake Fisher, who's still there, like we're saying,
I think the
do any of
Panthers could
these
be
teams-
interested in accruing more picks because they
I
obviously
agree.
lost a
agree.
lot after
But
getting
I-
rid of DJ
I'd be scared
Moore
about the
and getting rid of
49ers
That's what I'm saying.
taking Fisher, though.
the question is the 49ers right now.
I would be listen. I wouldn't be opposed to it trading up because then you trade up for a year and you still got at least one more 3rd round pick, and then you can look at corner DT. You can look anywhere,
Yeah.
and you got probably a
Okay,
third.
so let's see what the 49ers would want. We're
So
dealing
63.
for
We would
80.
give up
for 80.
80,
And then we give them like maybe 90, 115 or 97 is probably what you're. I would say maybe.
I wouldn't do
115.
97. I just 115.
115 for like 132 or whatever. Sorry.
72%.
I was gonna say I scratched my cornea earlier. I can't quite see. I can't quite see the board that well. Everything is blurry. You'll have to forgive me on that one.
Yeah, I mean that immediately isn't bad. What if we?
Are we okay with giving up a 4th rounder?
That's
I think we overvalue 4th rounder guys. I know Geno Atkins and Clint Bowling were 4th rounders 12 and 15 years ago, but in the last 10 years, the only 4th round hits you have are Cordell Volson, who's never been challenged honestly at left guard, and Carl Lawson, who didn't receive a second contract and now is struggling to find a team. Yes, we call those hits, but they weren't long-term hits like you just got a stud for your team. Whereas here, you can get a tackle that you feel good about.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm fine with giving up a 4th round pick. I know we hate the idea of giving up picks,
Yeah.
but I think we overvalue some of these later picks sometimes.
All right. Let's offer it. Let's see. Damn.
That's.
Dang.
I mean, not that it's hefty. You put it in the last.
I'm
one
okay
if
with
it's
giving
really,
them a 7th. Yeah,
Put it-
just to increase the juice a little bit and say, hey, like these guys are probably
we
not
go.
going to make the roster.
Bengals are on the
anyways.
clock.
There we go. There we go.
So
there
we go
go.
ahead, take Blake Fisher, say, hey, we've got a tackle here that can help us
Yeah.
out. And I think that's a really good idea
Blake
because
Fisher.
honestly, he's the last guy that I really feel great about.
We get Blake Fisher. We get our guy.
Claps.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. I like it.
I'm
I like
happy
it.
with the draft so far. I
Yeah.
mean, you got your tackle. Like
Yep.
we don't even have to worry about a tackle. Now you can go into your offensive line. We can go defensive tackle. We can go corner.
I am.
And I love all 3
There's-
players
man,
as
Evan.
pure talents.
Do what?
I'm hoping.
Oh,
our
yeah.
guys
No,
there,
you and I
man.
are in the same
That's what I was
wavelength. We're going to be there. Don't worry
Kyrie
about
Jackson.
it.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at him. I was looking at
Dude, it's fucking good, isn't it? Everything you look at is like, oh, okay, we got something.
I
Here. Yeah.
highly doubt he'd be there by this point. I mean, that's still
guys.
20 picks.
While we're
40.
asking-
Picks?
Huh?
I mean,
Jermaine Burton goes to the Bears in round 3.
Rattler to the
Talking about the
Broncos.
later round tackle prospects, Blake Fisher is the one that I feel good about. Everybody
High
else has
floor,
serious
high
questions
floor,
where
man.
I like Roger Rosegarden in terms of like his stats, his profile.
He was already
but
off the board.
He
too.
does have a strength profile that's a little concerning. And the other guys a lot in this range that I see are guards. So it's like
Von Baker.
if the
Fun.
drop off is from Blake Fisher to Christian Jones, I will happily sacrifice a 4th
Yeah.
round pick to move up
Johnny
and
Wilson.
get him.
That's such a
Bucky
Pittsburgh
Irving.
Steelers.
Johnny Wilson. Yeah.
I mean,
That's
We're
so
getting
clutch.
close.
That's so clutch. The Dolphins having a forfeited pick.
No. I'm there's a couple guys I still like here. I'm not pressed to move up or anything.
I don't know. Oh, he got
Did
picked
he
by the
go?
Bucks.
I'm gonna cry.
But
I'm gonna cry.
I want to ask you. I
Excuse
want to ask you
me.
a question. Okay. If,
Uber BB.
oh, never mind. That was my guy.
Hey, no,
Yeah, I
hey,
was talking about.
I mean, to I don't know. I don't want to jinx on. That's why I'm gonna
Yeah.
wait. Malik Washington,
Good
fun one
pick.
there.
That's such a
McCormick.
Ravens pick.
Yeah, it's all the receivers are that.
he's
build.
legit like Zay Flowers. To be
Yeah.
honest.
Okay.
Oh man, I love. I'm
There's,
sorry.
I mean, obviously Braylon Trice right there. Ben Sinot jumps off too. Did Pooney go? I must have missed him. I was
Looking
kind
at Paul and
No,
stuff,
he's
man.
up there. I think.
Pooney's still here right there.
Okay, I mean, there's a bunch of options here. I'm not gonna lie. I like Braylon Trice even to consider here. I like Pooney here a lot. Another guy that can kind of be. He can come in and start.
Can we look at
guard
tight end real
right
quick?
away. Ben Sinot is still there, Evan.
Yes.
That's what you're
Okay.
asking.
Look. All right.
I don't
we-
really think he'd be here.
I don't think he is,
come
but I
draft
think this is
time.
the home run pick, right? Because this guy can block, he can run routes, he's got great agility scores. He has been a
Yeah, man.
very, very, very good prospect to where, like you said, I don't think he's here,
I don't
but
think
if
he
he is, I'm running in the pick right now because
I'm
this
kinda
is the
there.
only tight end that you have the rest of the draft that has the Sam Laporta, George Kittle type upside where he could absolutely be the mid-tier high-end tight end one for
Yep.
you. And that's what I'm looking at going, man, like all these other guys, I know he's a little bit undersized, man, but like fucking 96 percentile three cone, that change of direction against linebackers, against safeties, like that's really good, man. Like 4.23 shuttle, 120-inch broad jump. These are all 94th plus percentile.
Unless there's
these
any,
are great indicators.
Unless there's any massive objections, I'm cool locking it in.
I'm gonna be honest, I like him, but just
because I know.
Who are you looking at on
like
this board right
these,
now going, we need him?
three guys,
Okay, but
man.
No, I'm there with you,
know,
Daniel.
but
You know I am.
Let's be honest. T'Vondre Sweat probably not going back end of the third, right? Dane Brugler's talking about him going in the fifth. The teams have him off the board completely. You've already taken your nose tackle. You have a three tech. You're taking backup three tech at this point when you've got a starting tight end with tight end one upside staring you in the face. You've got Sam Laporta basically staring at you in the third round right now.
To be honest,
Even if he's 85% of Sam Laporta, aren't you happy with this pick?
well, the thing is, man,
Aren't you just happy you have a tight end out there who can run block and catch passes?
I'm pretty happy here.
I know the bar's low, but like
I like Braylon Trice a lot too, but I still like Pooney here a lot too, man. I still
think there's wide receivers and corners that you can get in round 4 that you feel good about.
Yeah, I mean, I like Pooney here still a lot. I like Trice a lot as well. But I mean, it's kind of Trice's production is pretty absurd.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I mean,
you're not gonna catch,
Hurries.
I love Braylon Trice.
I'll just tell you
bro.
guys what's in my
I
mind
love
right
Braylon
now.
Trice.
It's the fact that every draft that we've done, he's never been here. Let's start there. Number 2, you have an edge rusher problem, happening very shortly. And you definitely want to have an answer for that. You can't be banking on a guy like Joseph Ossai this late in his career at this point with the Bengals. It doesn't really seem like he's going to be able to take that next step. You obviously are hopeful that Miles Murphy can turn and be that edge rusher of the future. Sam Hubbard was dealing with injury, so I don't want to hold him too much for that. But even more so,
But he's
Sam
not a
Hubbard,
productive pass rusher, and he's getting older. Yeah, it doesn't get
He's not
better.
fast. Braylon
It
Trice
doesn't
is
get
fast.
Yeah. Well,
Braylon Trice he's a solid. He's a better athlete.
I was going to
He might
say.
not
So
be fast.
here's my
He's
thing.
a
With it,
better
right?
athlete.
Here's the thing with it, right? What do we know about the Bengals and their defensive ends? They like big guys, right? Braylon Trice is 6'3.5", 45th percentile. Fine. 245 pounds, 7th percentile. Do we think they're going to like that? 32.5-inch arms, 12th percentile. Do we think they're going to like that? I don't think this is necessarily, and I know they've got Joseph Ossai, who's technically the outside linebacker edge guy, right? But I don't know if, especially with adding Miles Murphy, Trent Brown, or are they trying to get bigger in the trenches? Because that's what it seems like they're doing,
I
right?
just got a guy like Trey Hendrickson. He's kind of on this shorter, is shy. You consider the pass rushers the Bengals have had, and he's had a lot of success. And you just think, what would a year working with Trey Hendrickson be able to do for a guy like Trice? Listen, I understand like Trey Hendrickson probably isn't necessarily the greatest run defender at all, but I still think that I like Trice, man. I like him here.
I do too.
But
He's a very good pass rusher. I don't want to besmirch him in that sense at all.
I'm open to whatever because there's other guys that I think that will be here later. Like I like Gabriel Murphy personally.
I like kind of that similar-ish build to Trice as well. I like that as well. And for me, I'm between sign-on and an interior offensive lineman here.
I don't think, I want to be clear,
awesome.
I don't think Braylon Trice is a bad pick here. I just think there are other instant impact in the next year. I definitely want to address edge because, like I said, you're losing 4 edges over the next 2 seasons, right? You're losing 2 right after this season. And guys, again, Cam Sample played 500 plus snaps. They were trying to work Joseph Ossai in. Like Miles Murphy definitely solves one of those spots, but you're about to lose your starter and your depth behind that within a year and a half.
Yeah. Some solid corners here too. Maybe low rich for them.
I feel like I can wait on corner. There's some like mid-round prospects that I really like at corner in terms of ball production, size, length, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
but I hear where you're coming from with the tight end spot. I just, if we're, do we even want to entertain?
I think this guy has fallen 25, 30 picks too far.
Yeah.
And I don't see, I saw 10 different alarm bells with Keon Coleman that said maybe 3rd round, right, to me. But I don't see a single alarm bell with Sonota other than he's smaller, but he's still powerful. He's still strong, still a capable run blocker, and everything that he can offer after the catch, over the middle, short area, that's something you're not getting in these other guys.
Yeah, I will say, not that I have any issue. I like Sonata a lot. He, where you kind of expect him to impact the game, the passing game is very similar to what we'd probably be expecting from Roman Wilson. That kind of shorter, intermediate.
I think he was
underneath,
93rd percentile in forced missed tackle rate too. So
Yeah,
a guy who can
there's
do stuff
so
after
much
the
to like.
catch.
There's so much to like.
Trice is very good.
But how quickly does he get on the field with Cam Sample, Joseph Osai, Miles
what
Murphy,
about
Trey
Sinat,
Hendrickson,
though?
Sam
How quickly
Hubbard?
does he get on the field?
Yeah, true.
Who, Sinut?
Yeah.
Dude, I think Gesicki, the tough part with Gesicki, look, it's a 1-year deal. If they
Drew
draft like
Sample's
this,
a 3-year deal, though.
if they get through the camp and they say Sinot's showing more and shows that he can be a receiver as much as Gesicki can, he can do a lot more than Gesicki can. Gesicki might not make the roster at that case.
Well, he'll make the roster.
You can.
this
I
year.
know you love him, but
He'll
look me
make
in the
the
eyes
roster.
right now on his 1-year, $1.5 million deal and say
There's no way he
they
wouldn't make
would-
it over
they would
Tanner Hudson.
bench Sinot or Sinot
I'm
over.
sorry, there's
no way he
chance
wouldn't
in
work the
hell
team.
He's beating Sinot. I mean, Sinot's beating him out of the job this year. There's no chance in hell.
Not early.
There's no chance in hell. I can promise you.
Would we have said the same thing about Jesse Bates and Georgia Loca?
I don't know.
The entrenched starter who had performed well, and suddenly we're like, oh, okay, never mind.
Guys, I just think that when we really look at it, though, like on a serious note, like we always say, the draft is for the future, and I'm looking at the future here, and I'm looking at the edge.
I'm looking at the
rushers.
present and the future because
Yeah.
tight ends a need next year.
I'm looking
I
the
also
same
think-
thing with the
I also
interior
think
offensive
you can't-
line. I like
you
love
can never
Cooney.
have enough pass rushers in my opinion. Because
agree.
if we're honestly talking about it, right, one of the smarter picks would be Cedric Van Pran. Honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah,
If
I
we're
like
thinking
Van
about
Pran.
the future,
like
obviously,
Van Pran.
you talk about your center is going to be, going to be a free agent after next year, and you want to get younger at the spot. This is a guy that we know we've seen him do it at a high level at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen him have quality production as well. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but I just think that when I'm looking at the pass rush department, I've seen it shoot us in the foot time and time again, man.
It has.
That's what I haven't really stood on the table for anybody. I've kind of let you guys do the draft. I just really
Yeah.
think that Braylon Trice in this spot is I understand Evan's point of view, man,
Yeah.
and I get it. I'm right there with you, Ev. I just think that this is, man, I can't believe Braylon Trice is still sitting here, to be honest with you. And I think this is our last shot, unless we're going to draft Nelson Caesar next round, right? I mean,
Hey, shout out to our guy Parker Blake here
Yeah.
chipping in on the Braylon Trice. He says Trice has 0 to give in the run game, and then reiterated
Well,
in all
that's-
caps 0.
Well,
Again, are
I'm
the
pretty sure
Bengals
you were
going to
saying
want
the same thing about Trey Hendrickson probably at one point in time. Trey Hendrickson was looked at as
8 years ago, but
Okay.
we have 8 years of film in the NFL to say he can handle
Okay,
that,
I
right?
just-
Like,
I wanna
that's
get-
different.
I want to get your guys' opinion strictly on Dominic Puny here. He's a guy I love. Like I said, I considered him last round as well. He's right up there. Just with Blake Fisher in general, I think he's just as valuable of a player. He can come in and start immediately at left guard and be your center of the future. If you want, he can be your tackle. He can do so many things. He just provides you such a high floor on the team. He's listed as a tackle. But again, a guy that repped
I banged the table. I've said my
all
piece.
5 positions. I just want to know. We haven't really talked about that too much in depth. I really do like sign out here as well.
So I think this is actually great because I think every one of us is on something different.
Yeah.
I like Cooney. The only thing I'm going to say, honestly, the way I view this, I love 1, 2, and 3 here. I love these 3. I
I'll
think,
be honest with you, if Zach Zinter was there our next pick, I'd sprint it.
and that's so for me. I'm looking
That's just
at, and I think it's all different. Like we all view it different. I like the defense tackles. You like Braylon Trice. I think Braylon Trice is one of the best. I think Trice and Sinat are D2. You could say BPA. You're looking at BPA there as well as Pooney. The only thing I would say about Pooney is I like the interior offensive lineman later.
How the hell did Michael Pratt move up this far on the board? He's not this far.
Same reason Spencer Rattler's already gone.
Spencer
You know?
Rattler, yeah. So
All right, we're making a decision.
GM, I think. I mean, because we're all
Let's
so
go.
different. I like DTs. He likes Trice.
Pull up-
Sinat.
These are all good prospects.
Pull up the DT board, Daniel. Pull up the DT board here.
Only thing I do like the depth. of
That's what I
Taylor
wanted to
or
look at.
Carter.
Okay, I think I've made a decision in my brain.
All right.
I'm ready to lock in our first time drafting Ben Sinat here in the 3rd round. I think, man, there's just so many things to like about him. We've yet to address a tight end ever at anything. He feels like somebody we would really like. He can block. He can have the yards after the catch. He can get open. He just does a lot of things very, very well.
Inline, slot,
He's
he
got-
does it all.
yeah.
He does it all. You
Yeah.
don't have to keep worrying about this. We're going to have 3
In
tight ends, and they're all going to do
Carolina.
something
I
different.
think
Brian Burns
that's a
replacement.
phenomenal fit for Trice, by the way. But I think he's the last. I mean, he's really might only Brock Bowers and maybe Sanders are the only tight ends ahead of him that will come in and be good in the
And
NFL.
maybe Sanders. Like,
that's
at
what I
this
said.
point, I can hear
Maybe
the argument that
Sanders.
Sinat's over Sanders.
Yes,
and you get him
I
a
agree.
round and a half
He
later.
probably is. He
Yeah.
probably is.
Hold
I agree
on.
completely. I really do love Braylon Trice, though. That was really hard for me. But that's what I lean away from Trice when we give away some of our other picks too, because now we don't have the opportunity to draft more positions of needs, and kind of leans me off of Trice a little bit. But I really do love Braylon Trice.
Brendan Jackson gone.
35 picks to we're up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good guys still on the board. Like for me, if I was in the organization, I'd be looking to trade up. To be honest, either
I'm-
now, but I mean,
I'm not
maybe
too much in the company of trading future assets, really. But
yeah.
Leone Vaki.
Oh wow,
Seahawks.
yeah, safety.
Brendan
Rice.
That's a good.
I mean,
pick
so
there.
far, I think for the next
Isaiah
pick,
Davis.
we'll be able to go best player available. Tavondre
Yeah.
To
Sweat.
the Bears, they took the chance on him.
So I'm going to be really
That's a good
interested in interior offensive line and corner for these next coming picks, right?
Yeah.
Because
I still think edge rush is an interesting shot there as well.
yeah. And I kind of talked about this on Twitter a little bit about the importance that corner, your third boundary corner plays, because a lot of times you're like, oh, that's our backup corner. Why would we do anything with that? Right. And it's like, well, the backup corner has played like 500 snaps last year, 1,000 snaps the year before,
Carter,
1,000 snaps the
tough.
year before. So like your backup corner is going to play. You play more corners than you do any position except for wide receiver. They get injured at the third highest rate of anybody besides wide receivers and tight ends. You're talking about
Borderlini gone.
so I see value in corner in these mid rounds.
Kamara.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Caden Wallace, Mason Smith gone.
Man, Theo
Theo.
Johnson. Where are we at?
We're coming up. We're coming up.
149.
We're coming up. It's going to be a little interesting to see the board, the
Back-to-back
updated board.
picks. Leonard
Taylor,
Taylor,
that's a
bruh.
tough one, man.
Off now.
I know. There's still going to probably be some okay edge rushers, some corners,
Yeah.
but we're about to-
I'm
Luke
excited about the
McCaffrey,
mid.
like
I think there's a lot of round 3 and round 4 corners that have good ball production, good
Gabriel
field
Murray.
completion
Murphy,
rates.
that's a great
That's a
pick
tough-
for them.
well,
And
Shipley.
Shipley.
damn, bro. All right.
I like DJ James. I like Cam Hart. Zach Zinter.
Zenter. I like Zenter a lot. I mean, it's a weird one too, but Bo Limmer is a fun one too, but I mean, I kind of really like a linebacker here too. Cedric Gray is very, very, very good.
Can I see the cornerback board real quick just to see what we got here and where we're at? DJ James.
I think you're looking
Cam
solid here.
Hart.
I mean, Cam Hart, we like.
Yeah.
Kalen King, Josh Newton,
I wish
McLaughlin.
that Cam Hart had a little bit more on the ball production side.
Are they all the GMs? So I'm watching.
Man, you know, man, I know it feels weird here, but I mean, I'm really looking at Cedric Gray here. I know it's a linebacker, and I know it doesn't seem as anything too interesting, but the guy's a tackle machine. He makes plays on the ball quite often in the pass game. He covers very well. He's a really good do-it-all linebacker, and he's a great athlete. I mean, it feels maybe, you know, it's a linebacker. I'm not trying to spend too much of a high pick on a linebacker when we have Wilson and Pratt, but I just think he's a very good player here. And it's kind of a position of need-ish. I just think he's good. I want to, kind of bring him into discussion a little bit.
he looked extremely productive. I mean, there's still a lot of good guys left on the board.
Zinter is fun.
Yeah, Zach Zinter. I mean,
Zinter is interesting here
Yeah.
because this is kind of the point where you're like, we're in the 4th round. We're going to be looking at guards, centers.
5th round.
5th round for this. Yeah.
It's like Voorhees last year. It's kind of the guy that got hurt. We know he's better than what he actually is.
And he's going to pay off this year for them.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And I think that's kind of the same situation the Bengals could be in. I wish the edge board fell a little better.
Especially knowing that
Don't love it, yeah.
next year your guard spot is going to be.
Yeah, I really do like Zinter here.
I'm a fan of it.
I like Limmer too. There's some just solid, just real solid, man. Pretty decent in both the run and
is giving
pass.
up. I know these numbers
BB got
on
picked
everything.
already.
Yep.
Yeah, BB's gone.
Zinter has
gone.
given up 3 sacks in his career. I mean, obviously, so he played his entire career at right guard.
We pull up the tackles too, just to see if there's any.
Bo
Bo
Limmer,
Limmer's center, incredible strength as well. But we pull up the tackles just to see if there's anybody that slides in that I like Javon Foster a lot. Walter Rouse is fun too.
See, and this is the
but the
thing, right? If
tackles.
we don't get Blake Fisher, this is the type of like tackle depth
Well,
that
I
you're
would have
looking at,
punted,
right?
I would have drafted.
Yeah,
Pooney.
right.
We would have
That's-
drafted Pooney last round.
Right.
But if that was the case, what about running backs? We haven't really considered that at all. I don't think there's anything. We can even look at get them off the board.
It's looking slow.
I mean, Isaac Garendo.
You could
I-
probably
I-
get him later though.
I mean,
I definitely think the
Talk about an
athleticism is
athlete.
there. Yeah, for sure.
about
Like
an
that's definitely a
athlete.
guy you take a late round, 6th
Yeah.
round upside, and then in 3 years he's one of the like top 12 fantasy backs. And people
Yeah,
go, wow,
just
man, he came in the 6th round. That's crazy.
crazy athlete.
I'm gonna be honest. I think it's Zach Zinter. That's what I would go with. 'Cause, I mean, you can look at offense tackles. I'm good.
I like
Cornerback,
Zinter.
sure. I think there's still more cornerback depth. I mean, Jaheim Bell. We
I
already took
love
a tight
Jaheim
end.
Bell, though.
I like your Cedric Gray thing. I need to watch more of him. I like him, but I
That's
like loading up because then after this we have we got Blake Fisher now. This is us
Zinter.
doubling up an offensive line. If we do not get an offensive lineman here, it's looking slow for the O-line.
Yeah. I mean, I like Zinter. I do.
Who else would you go?
You said you like Jaheim Bell. I know we picked a tight end, but like, sell me on Jaheim Bell, because right now I'm looking at a guy who's what, 4th percentile in height and 8th percentile in weight. He's more of what, the fullback H-back type tight end? What role does that have in the Bengals 11 personnel drop back offense?
For all the people that are enamored with Brock Bowers, you should also like Jaheim Bell later. You know, it's that same vibe. He's not necessarily going to be your true tight end, but he can go be your slot. You can put him in the backfield a little bit. You can do more. He's not going to be your inline, you know, or Ben Sinai, your Drew Sample, your George Kittle kind of roles.
To be fair, he is an explosive athlete.
Yeah, you know,
understandable
he's
because of the size.
He's a good football player. I think you have to get a little creative with how you're going to use him offensively. But like I said, I do think a lot of the people, if you like Brock Bowers, I feel like you should probably like Jaheim Bell later.
I feel like that's one of the guys who, if you go to the perfect like Shanahan type scheme that knows how to move you around, knows how to put you in positions to win, to sneak through the play action. I don't know if that's the fit with the Bengals offense. And I say that not because of you, because I know other people are like,
I think if you look at even like Isaiah Likely, you know, he's a guy that, you know, you have a tight end that you know can play in line, be good, but we want a little bit of juice after him to, you know, just a better receiving threat. You slide in Jaheim Bell to kind of be that versatile offensive piece to kind of slide in with the 12 personnel or whatever it may be, just to give you some more, you know, just some more looks, some different creative options. You know, if you went to the Rams, a beautiful fit, the Vikings even. Like
any of those wide zone schemes, for sure.
I think Jonnu Smith almost like too, just that kind of move around, get the ball in his hands, just be an athlete kind of guy.
What are we thinking here?
I'm pretty comfortable just taking Zach Zinter here. I think he's maybe not BPA with the injury currently, but this time next year, I think that, you know,
one of our I haven't watched Limmer, and you said you liked him. One of our trusted scouts here, Parker Blake, is saying that he likes Limmer better than Zinter. You want to speak on that a little bit?
Well, I think it's very close. I think obviously Zinter is obviously more of he's a guard. Limmer's a center. It just depends on how exactly you want to proceed. You know, if you want, maybe we can argue center's a bigger need because Ted's.
Well, you can also argue that the guy with guard center versatility can fill a need this year or compete this year at least, while also filling a need for the future.
You know, Limmer tested very well, I believe. I don't know what his athletic numbers were, but I believe he bench pressed like a lot, which is always pretty cool.
One metric dictum,
which is always pretty cool for offensive linemen. But I love the interior here.
Yeah,
you're GM, man. You make the pick here. We've made our cases.
Is it Zinter or is it Limmer?
Let's go Zinter here.
Okay.
I just think more of a guard. The Bengals haven't drafted a guard in forever. I think we can still find another center later. Like
as long as you can defend your job next year, GM.
And to be honest, like I said, I still think there's some centers I like a little bit later too, and I'm totally cool with drafting another interior offensive lineman. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I still think there's a few, you know, that can be decent players that have multiple positions of experience as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at down the board.
Jones goes to the Rams.
Jaheim Bell to the Vikings. I said that would be a good fit.
That's it right there.
Alan Holker. Yeah. I like Limmer a lot too. They're very close for me. I really do like
the Bills.
Yeah.
Man.
Right. And this is kind of the point where we start splitting hairs, right? You end up doing that just a little bit. I do want to shout out our scouts that exist in the comments here over the last couple of weeks. Isaiah Davis, PFF has heard you guys, and they have moved him all the way up to 116 on the board. So as much as we might like him in the later rounds, he's already gone.
If that happens.
But hey, good looking out on Isaiah Davis. That's a good call out.
Nelson
Caesar went to the Ravens.
Mm-mm-mm.
That happens.
So many picks for the Saints and Eagles here, man. Back-to-back Oregon State players.
You know the Eagles are just going to pick a bunch of like 5th-round trench guys, and then in 2 years you're going to be like, how the fuck do they have backup tackles just coming out the years?
They will be unbelievable.
I still stand by the fact that the Bengals should back up a Brinks truck to Dante Scarnecchi's house and just be like, hey, man, come back.
Limmer to the Steelers.
How much money is it? Here's the blank.
Limmer to the Steelers, man. I really like Limmer. I really do.
I'm going to be honest, guys. I'm watching Zinter's film against Ohio State. This shit's good. Zinter is what I'm seeing is Zinter is mobile, and a lot of times it's his his ability to go from being the pulling guard, and he's not the strongest guy. Like he's getting pushed around at times, but just his mobility, and he's always in the right spot. And I mean, he's going up against Michael Hall. He's going up against the Thule, I can't say his name, but Ohio State.
We'll figure it out next year.
Like, I'm looking at center. He's just always in the right spot. We're getting him in round 5. I know he's got the injury, but he's always in the right spot. I love.
I feel like even though like maybe I'm a little higher on Limmer, people are a little higher on Limmer. I think Limmer definitely has a higher upside. I think it's kind of one of those center's going to be solid regardless. I think when you're a center.
Oh my gosh,
your boy.
We are back.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
I'm scared.
There he is.
What did I miss?
And Dwight McGlothern is there.
Can we look at the other corners? Because I just want to. I'm not trying to take you off your guy. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else. Okay. I need to make a case for Elijah Jones.
Elijah Jones.
Now hear me out. I'm not saying that we have to ignore Dwight McGlothern, right? Same height.
Jones, man.
Same height, same arm length, more explosive. You talk about vertical and broad jump, show how explosive you are, especially in short areas, right? 9th and 7th percentile for Dwight McGlothern versus 97th and 91 for Elijah Jones. Same height, same arm length. Passer rating when targeted. Elijah Jones ranks 2nd out of 153 corners. In terms of ball production, 25th in forced incompletion rate, 6 interceptions, 5 forced breakups. Dwight McGlothern was also 13th in passer rating, 25th in forced incompletion rate. They were tied in forced incompletion rate. So what you're getting in Elijah Jones is everything that you're getting out of Dwight McGlothern with a little bit more ball production and also just better numbers and a better athlete. You're sitting here saying Dwight McGlothern is going to be good in zone. I can sit here and say Elijah Jones has the athletic ability to be in zone, but also do all the match man principles that you end up with when you're doing cover 4, when you're doing quarters, and it turns into man, especially in bunch sets. He can handle that duty, whereas Dwight McGlothern, I feel, has to rely more on instincts, playing off. I feel like Elijah Jones is the corner in this late round. He's one of the guys I'm talking about that I love his profile, his production profile, everything about him, size, athleticism, ball production. Getting him this late, I feel like, is a steal.
Yeah, I mean, I like Elijah Jones a lot. I really do.
He's Dwight McGlothern, but just fast.
I mean,
and
five
explosive.
5 interceptions in 9 games is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the difference between them, from what I saw, I mean, I absolutely loved Elijah Jones. I think, I mean, obviously you got same height and everything. Elijah Jones is more technical, whether I see Dwight McGlothern having the higher ceiling. And that's just what I saw.
Now, where does that ceiling come from, though? Because he's not going to get faster. He's not going to be more explosive. So when the athletes are better in the NFL, how does he get better? Because right now, again, his production largely comes from being in zone, using his instincts, which, again, the Bengals do a lot. But when you play these cover 4, a lot of times these things turn into man. Zone is a good coverage, but eventually zone, a lot of times, turns into man. You eventually got to pick up an assignment and cover his ass. And I feel like Elijah Jones, with that profile, you're talking about – now, again, if we're talking like 70th percentile athlete versus 90th, I'm not concerned as much. But you're talking about 9th and 7th percentile athlete versus 97 and 93. But you're getting all the same things with more ball production. I know he's a darling. I know we have personal feelings for him. But I'm sitting here looking at the profile and saying they got the same height, the same size, more production, more athleticism than Elijah Jones. So that's where I'm going to plant my flag.
Yeah.
What else are we looking at besides corners?
I just think that this is. I mean, these two.
I think these.
I mean, Isaac Rendo's still there.
These are the two. Like, to be honest, I think these two should be going way higher.
I agree. I agree.
And that's the thing. When I looked at both of these guys, Dwight McGlothern had a great game against Florida, and Elijah Jones had a great game against Florida State. So
too good.
I saw Dwight McGlothern did very good on Ricky Pearsall. I saw Elijah Jones did very good on Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson.
But 2 massive receivers too, by the way. I think
he has size too. He has size and athleticism.
I think Daniel's point right there just kind of sold me on Elijah Jones a little more. We talked about how he had success against a 6'4" and a 6'7" receiver. Imagine having that skill set in the NFL. Imagine having a guy that can hold up against these bigger body receivers.
But it's not like you're losing out on the athleticism.
Exactly. Either. And I think that's the point of it. And to be honest, like, I really don't care if he ended up with both of them.
Decide to go that way, I appreciate that you value my opinion so highly from the analytics department over here. But are there any prospects in other positions that we see here that we like?
Let's keep looking at the other ones. That's why I like Garendo a little bit here. I mean, in general, I mean, McKinley Jackson at this late, I think is a decent dart throw. I mean, you're waiting. It's the 6th round. We're not waiting anymore.
I would rather rely on Byron Murphy to fill the nose tackle than
Christian Boyd. I am
I just don't think these guys are as good as Jones or.
I don't
like
know. Christian Boyd might be.
I don't think he's as good as the corners. I can see both those corners. To be honest, I can see both them becoming starting caliber corners in year 2.
Yeah,
I that's for me. I think they're both.
I mean,
the size. I wouldn't be looking. To be honest,
I saw it and thinking of what Malik was talking about earlier with Trice and everything. There's still a guy you can't really see him anymore. He doesn't play for the Houston Rockets here, but Jalen Green from James Madison, 18 sacks. 18 sacks. Yeah. Again, he's a little bit one of those smaller guys, a 20% pass rush win rate, just unbelievable metrics in the pass rush department. If we're really looking for some juice in the passing game, that's something to consider as well.
And what do you want to see from a small school prospect? You want to see him dominate the competition, and he absolutely did that, right?
And that's exactly.
If you're undersized, you got to be a great athlete. If you're going to be a small school prospect, you have to dominate your competition, and I think he's a good example of that.
Okay,
GM.
I think let's lock in the Florida State corner. Or the Boston College corner. Sorry. Same colorway.
Yeah, for sure.
Same colorway. Just a better athlete than Boston.
This is my pick. I know he's probably going to go to the Browns and then play for like 4 years or something. And Malik is just going to be sitting there kicking the trash can in the corner of the room. I told you, Dwight McLeather.
To the Falcons. You know, I like them. They're very similar players. And
they are. It's just the difference for me. We're splitting hairs. One is a top 10% athlete and one is a bottom 10% athlete.
You know, and
it captures upside.
It would be wrong of me to not go with that argument now when I went with it earlier to select Byron Murphy over Jerzon Newton. When you have the better athletic testing, the production.
Jalen Green goes to the Lions.
That's a really good pick. When you have the production and then you have the athleticism to match, you know, or it's better than the person you compared it to, it's kind of hard just not to lean that way.
To speak to that a little bit, relative athletic score is something that makes it permeates the draft space a little bit. And the value of that is over 80% of the players in the NFL have a relative athletic score of over 5. So you're above average athlete. That really, really matters. So that's something to be considering, especially when you're trying to figure out these late round picks who can potentially contribute. Picking the higher end athletes versus the lower end athletes is going to net you a better success over time. Sure, there's outliers, but if you're trying to chase outliers, you're going to get 1 in 10 picks right versus if you're chasing the general correlation, the stuff that really contributes year to year to saying this guy might be successful, you're going to get 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, right? Because this is the draft. This is where we all like to pretend we're good at the draft, but we all hit it like 40, 50% rate, right? Like we do our best, but there is a fit, a scheme, a coaching staff, a GM, all that stuff factors into whether or not these guys succeed, not just how good of a prospect they are.
Yeah. I mean, we're what? And this is our 6th round pick. We have 2 picks remaining, this one and then 237. I mean, there's still some of these DTs aren't terrible. Like I still like Christian Boyd a lot. I really do. Just another small school guy that did a lot of things very well and dominated the metrics side of things.
What role do you see him having for the Bengals, especially in the near future?
He's going to be your back end, like interior defensive lineman. You know, he's going to fill that, you know, J. Tufele kind of role. Even that Topu role to a degree. He's bigger. He's a decent athlete. Crazy strength as well. Just another one of just a back end body in the defensive line room. And we talked all offseason about how the whole room needs a makeover, and it just kind of continues that theme. I mean, it's you know, obviously there's no clear starting path, but
you are losing Zach Carter. You're losing BJ, and I say losing, but you're netting really.
This time next year, BJ Hill's a free agent, and if you like what you've seen from him, maybe you don't got to spend the pick somewhere else. You know,
you don't have to spend $10 million on your backup 3 tackle or your backup nose tackle. Josh Stevens is an interesting choice here. He's an interesting late round option for sure.
I thought I saw it. I mean,
but we've already kind of addressed wide receiver.
I like Fabian Lovett there too from Florida State, another interior defensive line guy. He kind of stuck out a lot when I was trying to watch Braden Fisk, to be honest. Just more of your stereotypical kind of interior defensive lineman.
That's a big dude.
That's a big dude. Yeah,
that's a big boy.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'4", 320. Yeah. Like, I mean, but still, that's a stout guy. He's older. You know, but again, we're here at the back end of the draft. We're looking for people that can stick on a team, whether it's goal line situations, whether it's special team situations. Just again, I always say, just find something you're great at, and if there's people here that are great at one thing, then it's worth considering.
For me, I look at Kendall Milton. To be honest, he's a guy who hasn't been on the board here. When I look at a running back that I want, he is something. I mean, we're talking 6'1", downhill runner. He's something I think could give us something different for the Bengals offense. I look at him. Obviously, Dylan Johnson's here. I saw Dylan Johnson's film. Dylan Johnson's very good. I think Kendall Milton is something different. At the end of the day, when we at the back end of the draft, I want something different. I want something unique. He's a dude at Georgia. He was running over people. His long speed in open space is very good. I think he's the most comparable guy to a guy like what the Bengals wanted with Joe Mixon, in just give me downhill and run over somebody. That's what Kendall Milton is. 6'1", 220 pounds. As I'm looking at the talent, he's the guy I would be looking at. I do like Dylan Johnson a lot too. Very productive out Washington.
We pulled the interior offensive line.
I do want to point out, you're talking about Kendall Milton, just to wax poetic on him. When we were doing prep for the Alabama-Georgia game, he's a guy who kept popping out on the stats for me. And 88.9 rushing grade is over the 70th percentile. He's really good in zone. Elusive rating was the 71st percentile, but also 4.12 yards after contact. That's a high fucking number, man. Like, if you're getting 4 yards after first contact, you're doing damn good, and you are hard to bring down. And I think that would be a perfect compliment, like Daniel said, to a guy like Chase Brown over the next couple of years, to where, hey, if Zach Moss doesn't work out, if Zach Moss starts to age as running backs do when they start hitting 28, 29, and have had injury history, that's definitely a guy who can offer you more than maybe a Travion Williams does.
Yeah.
I haven't watched much of him.
I mean, to be honest, pairing, I think it's not that important, but when you do pair college teammates together, like when they play next to each other like that, like with Nugent here, like that's something that I think does go a long way for them too, specifically, just, because eventually if you're expecting them to be playing next to each other, they already have the chemistry. But another interior offensive line guy I wanted to look at here is just Dylan McMahon.
Yeah, I figured that was your guy.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, bro, 300 plus snaps look at the positional versatility there. 300 plus snaps at 3 different positions in 3 different years. That's a guy that's continued to move around year in and year out. Maybe that's because he sucks.
Shows high IQ too. Shows high IQ too, because we oversimplify how easy it is to just flip sides of the line, right? To learn left guard and then just play right tackle. That's something that keeps popping up with Fuaga, right? Or Fontenot, where people were like, oh, just put him at left guard for a year and then play him at right tackle. And it's like, dude, that's weird. That's really weird to someone, and you have to be like a high-end level athlete, have a great mind-body connection to do that. And I think that speaks to his ability.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few, there's 2 interior offensive linemen. You kind of sold me a little bit on the Kendall Milton thing here. Matt Lee's a fun one down there as well from Miami. Does a lot of things well. Another guy that does.
This is a great time to take a swing on running back, right?
I do too. I'm kind of there with Milton. I think he fits a lot of what, we're kind of looking for at the position, that downhill runner. That's just good. And that's exactly what we need. When Daniel was originally started kind of talking about it, I'm like, I don't really know if I want to do running back. We have Moss, we have Brown, not that Evans is that good, but he's still on the roster. Travion Williams still on the roster.
Who do you want, Malik? No, I'm just saying we draft Milton over Drake Nugent.
I mean, let's talk about this real quick, because what are the odds that a 6th round interior offensive lineman makes a significant impact for your team versus 6th round running back? It's much easier for the running back to make an impact versus the interior offensive line. And with Milton, 95th percentile height, 81st in weight, 94th in wingspan, 78th in arm length. This is a big back, and best of all, even though he has that size, he's still 86th percentile in the 10-yard split, which is what I care about more than the 40 for running backs, because how often are running backs running 40 yards downfield? Not often. But in that short area, despite his size, he is still a good athlete. He has still shown proven production in the SEC in one of the most difficult conferences. I feel like he is a guy who could make the roster and contribute in the near future.
I think just Malik talking a little bit over here under his breath a little bit kind of made me help me realize what we should do here. And I say this because it's something I've talked about time and time again. And just because I'm the GM now doesn't mean I should switch up. You know what I mean? I've been we're going to be depleted with the interior offensive line depth. We're going to be depleted with the offensive line depth in general this time next year. Say it every show. 4 free agents on the offensive line this time next year. Go ahead and give me Drake Nugent here. Just shore up the interior offensive line.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. I am so sure. I am so sure. Again, like I said, it's something I say week in and week out. And just because I'm in charge now doesn't mean I should. Doesn't mean I should get fancy. I mean, you were close a few times. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really like.
You got to
Brandon
bring the
Trice.
heat, Malik.
I really
You got to
like
bring the
Brandon
heat.
Trice. I'm not.
I
gonna
said
lie.
I was gonna sit back. People told me last week, you're not sitting back and letting them be the GM. So I was
Just
gonna
throwing
sit
the weight
back.
around a little too much. They said you got to take a week
No.
off.
No, and like I said, man, I sit here every week talk about how the offensive line depth is going to be depleted this time next year, and it's these high floor guys like Nugent, like Zenter that we just took are exactly the kind of guys you want to fill the back end of your room, and. I know I would be scared to draft another one if I'm being honest, but I won't. But still, there's still going to be maybe some running back. That's what I was just going to say. Man. And another great receiver there for them, just like Daniel's guy, Malik Washington there earlier. There's some fun people still left. Like, I feel like
I was going to say, people were upset about the Malik Washington in the 5th pick. Well, he got picked in the 3rd round now. So
yeah, Frank Gore to the Cowboys is such a Cowboys thing to do.
Oh man, yeah, just chase those bloodlines.
Whatever,
baby.
man. Give me Frank Gore.
Wait, I think he's still here.
Who? Oh, is Milton still here?
I think Milton might still be.
I think he is.
Dude, I'd go ahead and mail that pick in, man. Like for a number of reasons. Again, size,
Yeah.
speed, production,
It is.
strength, yards after
Drop it up.
contact. Yeah,
Yo,
that might be the quickest
And
draft.
Daniel traded the pick. God
Is that
dang
the
it.
quickest draft pick we've ever had? Like, I think we
Pretty
just walked
much.
up and just hit
I
that
was
one
the
in
only
there
person
real
I considered
quick. Yeah, all right.
and this was probably
Claps up for not spending 20 minutes on the 7th round pick.
Right.
Nice.
We did the pick before this time. We did the pick before this time. I mean, yeah. There. No,
Man.
I think going through this, maybe
This is an interesting draft.
maybe it was the board differing a little bit, but I liked our last picks a lot.
We went a different route.
They did not.
We did.
PFF said we absolutely sucked from
No,
round
they
five
gave us a
on.
big- they gave us a big-
From round 5 on, they said we were average at best.
I don't
But-
understand the Elijah Jones in round 6 getting a D-. His production, his
It's just
athleticism,
if they
his
grade him
size,
bad. It's just their opinion.
and his position of value too. That's
their
something that I
position as
know
much
for
as
a
it is
fact that
ours.
PFF values.
But I
mean,
like it.
Overall, man, you gotta feel. This draft was good. It was a good one. What was your guys' favorite pick?
Look,
He sounded really confident there, Malik.
I love the Elijah Jones pick, right? That late getting a guy who actually has a height, size, athleticism, ball production profile. How many corners are you getting like that in the 6th round?
Yeah.
That's a combination of skills, but obviously the Benson at 97, guys, I don't want us to all be surprised when he goes late 2nd, early 3rd.
Yeah, he'll go.
Because remember, we thought Tucker Kraft and all these other guys were
And
going
then
to
the Packers
go
drafted them all.
round 3, round 4, and then they ended up going middle of round 2.
Yeah,
Not just him. Who was
the
the other
Packers.
one? Luke
Musgrave to the Packers. They
Luke
both went to the
Musgrave,
Packers.
and
I wasn't kidding.
And we
I think-
thought they'd all be there in the 4th, and they all went a round and a half early.
And I think the realistic thing about this is the Bengals solved so many issues. No matter,
Right.
I mean, you could pick whatever guy you like, right? Obviously, I was a Dwight McGlothern guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you could pick any guy that you like necessarily. The way that this draft kind of shaked out. The only pick I just was whatever about was Vincent. That's just me.
Mhm.
But I still think that you still lived by that mantra of drafting for the future.
Yep.
I think that when you look at it, Byron Murphy is a great pick. I feel like this board was one of the weirdest ones that we had.
Yes.
so
It
far.
felt really weird, but I
yeah.
think we did a good job navigating that, but also marrying guys who can help right now, give you 2, 3, 4, 500 snaps while also addressing positions of the future, right? You have Byron Murphy, you can play nose tackle, but slide over to 3 tech if you don't keep Sheldon Rankin. You've got Roman Wilson who fits into your slot spot right now.
Yep.
And then you have Andre Yoshivas who showed a little bit last season as being an outside receiver, showed some upside. And then you can address that next year. Blake Fisher, look, I love the addition of Trent Brown. He's made it through 1/3 of the
Right.
seasons that he's played in the NFL. That's a real thing. You're probably going to have to play your backup tackle at some point. Zach Zinter there to challenge Cordell Volson right now while also giving you insurance for the future. Ben Sinnott giving you that, what happens when Mike Gesicki is up? You have the same fucking problem you've had for the last 2-3 seasons, right? I feel like this is a great job of marrying need for now and the future.
And, obviously, thankfully, I was awarded the GM hat today. But, I think this is kind of how the draft will always kind of play in my mind for a few different reasons. One, I'm always going to tend to be a trench heavier guy, especially the way the league is trending with how expensive the positions is getting. And,
Right.
Great
point.
the people and the ideology behind the last few picks with the interior offensive line depth, with the corner depth, and just even with drafting Byron Murphy earlier, is just because look where the money is going. Look where the money is shifting in the league. And when we are an expensive franchise, we have world-class players like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Those people are going to be expensive. Joe's already expensive. We all know Jamar Chase is going to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL. You have to have players ready to step up at important positions that you trust. And when you get the opportunity to draft those players like Zach Zentor, like Elijah Jones, like Drake Nugent, who are high floor backup level players that you can rely on for year in, year out, here and there, plug and play, that's going to help you save money because you don't have to go spend on a backup guard. You don't have to spend on a starting guard if Volson sucks or if Alex Kappa leaves or if Ted leaves, like all these things. You don't have to then go freak out and spend money, say, hey, we need a starting center. No. We just slide the guy we drafted a couple years ago in after he sat and developed. You save your money that way, and you can continue to spend money on the elite players you have and spend money on elite players in free agency. I think drafting that's my whole ideology behind drafting
you
like
stand
this.
on you standing on business.
Yeah.
Right? You stand on the picks that you want. Like part of this draft of me taking a step back was allowing to see how we all have different ideologies and different things. Next week I'm gonna let Daniel be the general manager. And we'll see how that kind of shakes out. I'll say this. Like at some point I wish we would have addressed edge because I think we've yet to address edge.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that's going to rear its ugly head at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to rear its ugly head at some point. You need to be able to get more pass rush. But all in all, I mean,
I want to address
sense.
one of the people said this is a terrible draft
Yeah,
because
that,
these guys are not athletes. The Bengals like athletes. Ben Sinnott had a 9.73 out of 10 RAS. Elijah Jones had an 8.9. Blake Fisher is 7.5. Roman Wilson is 8.9. These guys are all above average athletes. So Byron Murphy is a top end athlete at D. So I don't know what you're watching or what you're looking at that says that these guys aren't athletes and can't contribute.
If you want to figure out the dude who broke his leg isn't an athlete, or Kendall Milton who's a downhill runner isn't an athlete.
Because again, you have guys who are all over the 75th percentile in athletes. Like how is this an unathletic draft?
When's the last time the Bengals drafted a good athlete?
They are notorious for having the least athletic offensive line. Yes, it's skill positions 100%, but again, even if we're saying blanket, every single one of these guys tested as a 75th percentile or better athlete, right? Yeah. So I don't know where these guys aren't athletes. Benson is a fucking crazy athlete for his size.
The thing is, if you want to talk about the guys down the board not being a great athlete, you know what? They're down the board. All the great athletes are
right.
Gone.
That's why they're down the board.
Great athletes, they're probably pretty terrible at something.
And also interior offensive line, center, guard, defensive tackle. Your athleticism matters less at that position.
And like I said, too, like we're not drafting these athletes down the board necessarily or pivoting to more of the high floor players. And when the team's expensive, when they need players that you can rely on in a pinch to where we know we're not going to roll out a terrible left guard or left tackle in the AFC Championship game. You draft high floor players at the end of the draft. Yes, if you want to say you'd rather draft lottery tickets at the late rounds, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with that at all because that can work just as much as drafting high floor players is. But with the way the Bengals are situated right now, they need more solid players on the roster, not more dart throws. We need people that they know they can rely on and count on and be there week in and week out when their numbers call.
And again, people say, oh, I see 3 or 4 guys who are going to play this year. Again, I pointed out before we even took Elijah Jones, the corner 3 for the boundary has played 500 snaps, 1,000 snaps, 1,000 snaps the last 3 years. It's one of the most injured positions. It's the one you have to have 3, 4 guys out there all the time playing. Again, Sinnott's going to play. If we look at history, there is a 70% chance that Blake Fisher gets on the field at some point for Trent Brown.
I mean,
Roman Wilson is going to play. Byron Murphy is going to play. Like, these guys are going to touch the field. They are going to give you snaps. And again, if we just say, oh, you're not going to give us 600, 800 snaps, well, then fuck. Let's just take wide receiver first round because that's the only position where you're going to play 700 possible snaps this year. If we're just going to say, well, don't take Byron Murphy, don't take offensive tackle, they might not play 800 snaps. Okay, well then you're looking at wide receiver and that's it. That's it. Slot receiver because T. Higgins is still here. So you're going to draft a slot receiver in the first round because you want him to play 800 snaps? Like that's bad team building. That's bad team building.
Yeah, I think just to close it out for me, I'm going to be honest. I think Zach Zentor is going to be a beast. And after this week, I don't know if I'd be comfortable with waiting for him to be here. So I'm a huge Zach Zentor fan. I am concerned. I do think the pass rush for me, looking at another defensive tackle or an edge, I would have liked. But just looking at these two, at the end of the day, when you look at drafts, how many productive players do you really get? I am so confident we're going to get these two. I think Roman Wilson, year 1, could be 600, 700, 800, 900. I think he could be pushing what Tyler Boyd did his rookie year. What, 700 yards? I think Roman Wilson easily eclipses that. So you give me Roman Wilson, who I know will produce year one, and you give me Byron Murphy, who's the defensive tackle of the future. At the end of the day, I am happy with how the rest played out. It's fine, but you give me 2 studs at the beginning. I like our 2 first picks, and
Yeah, I like it as well.
The first 2 are immediate contributors. The next 2 are partial contributors, probably first year where they play 3, 4, 500 snaps, maybe, depending on the health of Trent Brown. I would love if Trent Brown just stayed healthy for the entire season in playoffs. He's done that in 3 out of 9 seasons. Like, you can't just be like, that's fine, and we have nothing.
And be okay with
Hey,
that.
Cody Ford is going to run us into the playoffs.
Absolutely not.
Are you fucking kidding? Y'all remember how it worked the last time the Bengals had a patchwork offensive line, and we're like, oh, Michael Jordan will be fine enough, right?
Well, they did go to us.
Yeah, and they did. And then what
Imagine
happened,
if we
right?
didn't have a terrible line.
Yeah, y'all remember that entire
Yeah.
thing going,
No.
fuck. And then Jamar Chase would have to have a 70-yard play if you wanted to have a chance to be in there. Like, I feel like you hit wide receiver, you hit defensive line, you hit tackle, you hit tight end. You've got a backup corner and guard and center spots. Like, what are you looking at this draft? And sure, again, we can always say, oh, maybe you like Ricky Pearsall over Roman Wilson. That's fine. We're not saying you got to take these players or that players are bad, right? Like, we're splitting hairs in some of these picks. If you want a different guy at that spot, if you like a different tackle at round 3 over Blake Fisher, then okay, like, slide those in. But overall, where you hit them and the value you got them at and what they can give you right now, I feel like this is a home run draft. This might be my favorite one that we've done, even though last week's was really, really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we are all aligned about this draft class and how it kind of shaped up for the Bengals. Next week, we've got one more State of the Jungle War Room before me and the boys will be going live to discuss round 1 of the NFL draft for the Bengals and finally get their long pick at 18. But as always, if you guys could do us a favor, we've had so many people watch live with us today. We greatly appreciate you guys supporting and watching alongside with us. You guys can give us a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content for the First Star Logistics Studio. We look forward to you guys joining us back here live, and we'll have some more information regarding what the plans are for night 2 of the NFL draft. I see the comments, I hear the questions. Don't worry, the information's coming soon. But until then, guys,